This is my ultimate Raspberry Pi that we recently put together, but I think we can make it even more ultimate with this. So yes, in the previous video, I put together this ultimate Raspberry Pi. It's a Raspberry Pi 5 with the 16 gigabytes of RAM. It uses the Pironman5 case with a M.2 SSD. And it really was quite impressive, but one thing it was kind of lacking a little bit is the graphics performance. So that's where this comes in. This is my RTX 4060, which, yes, is complete overkill. I know. And yes, it's Nvidia plus Linux. Ew, closed source, but this is what I have to work with today, and this is what we're going to use. But as you might notice on this, or if you watched the previous video, this only has one PCI M.2 connector, so I can't actually smush this in very well, which is where this comes in, the Pironman5 Max. So in the previous video, I actually bought this. I got everything together. This has actually been sent over by the manufacturer because they have this new case and they thought I would be interested in trying it out. This video isn't sponsored in any way. They just sent me this to review. And naturally, one of the things that was particularly interested about this is that it has two M.2 slots. It also has a nice black coating, which I think I prefer over the silver, but we'll get into that. But most importantly, yes, we have two M.2 slots. Now it's sharing the same PCI lane, so it's not going to be super fast, but with a bit of a breakout, we can install a full graphics card onto our Raspberry Pi. This is going to be a bit of a project, so let's get this started. First things first, we need to get my Raspberry Pi out of here and get it into the new case. So let's get that all done, and then we'll have a look at how we're going to get this thing connected with its full PCI slot into the small tiny M.2 slot that is in here, and let's see if we can get it working. So for those that didn't see the first video, this is the original Pironman5 case. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what we're going with. And actually, genuinely, it is a really great little case. You've got your SD card slot available on the front here. You've got a tiny little OLED screen to display system information, nice power button. Around the back, you've got full-size HDMI ports, which is really nice. And then all your normal I/O as well. And most importantly, you've got that nice M.2 slot kind of broken out from the PCI lane that is on the Raspberry Pi. So this is still a brilliant case, but this just kind of takes it, well, as it says, to the max, which is basically by creating those two M.2 slots. Now, as far as I can tell, the color and the M.2 slots is the only real thing that's different here. But we'll kind of get into it more as we get it open. I think you can see here that it's more, the whole front is transparent, whereas this one has this kind of metal area. So there's maybe some slight design changes as well. But I really like the original, so just adding that M.2 slot and the black color is more than enough for me anyway. But let's get this open, let's check what we've got in here, and then we need to disassemble this, get the Pi out of it, and then assemble this. So again, as I said, this is just a review unit that they've sent over. And we have here a full kind of sheet of all the different bits and pieces and gubbins that you get, and then a full sheet, step by step, I'm guessing it starts this side yet, step by step on how to actually install and set this thing up. It's a little bit involved, like there's a lot of steps, but it's very clear from the last time from using this one. It's very clear how to do it. It really does take you through every single step. So I wouldn't be worried if you're kind of a beginner to doing this sort of stuff. It really does show you every single step to take. So there's that, and that's very useful, obviously. And then in here, let's see what we've got. So we've got the side panel, which is covered in protective plastic at the moment. And as you can kind of see on here, the side panel is slightly different. There is a little bit of a different setup for where the mounts go. So I'm going to say that they've definitely tweaked things, hopefully to improve them. So there's that one. Here is our breakout board for, you see you've got power and the micro and the micro HDMI ports, which could become full HDMI ports, and the USB power as well. We've got this one here, which I believe is the switch converter. So this changes it to a normal switch connection from the pins on the Pi. This one is just a little extender for the SD card slot. So it literally, the SD card plugs in, and then you've got a port to put your SD card in. Just extends it out so it comes to the front of the case. We've got our power button and a ribbon cable in there. Bunch of screws and standoffs, which we'll definitely need. This is our OLED screen. Another small thing of different bits and pieces. I think there's some thermal pads in there and some feet as well. We've got our CPU cooler here, which, as far as I can tell, is exactly the same as the old one. We've got a couple of RGB addressable fans, which do look different. See, I think these are an upgrade because on here they weren't actually addressable. I don't think it was just literally power and ground, whereas this one you've got the 4 cables. So these are definitely addressable, which is cool, and means you might actually be able to kind of set up your own LED stuff instead of it just cycling through. We've got a little screwdriver, a bigger screwdriver, a little spanner. This is the key component here. We have our M.2 dual M.2 adapter here for 2 M.2 devices. It's still only one PCIe lane, so you're gonna be like splitting that between the two. So I'm not sure how performance is gonna be, but we're gonna find out. And then here's our Piron IO hat. Now, this is definitely different. It's been changed. I don't think there's any like revision number on it that I can see from the old one here, but this is definitely different. You've got the new addressable fan headers, and I'm not sure what else, if anything else is actually changed, but this is different. This is an upgrade. And then we have another piece of acrylic. That is actually the front panel. So the whole front panel is now acrylic. And as you can see, we have one single piece of aluminium now. I think it's aluminium. Whereas previously it was actually 2 pieces. It does actually look like it's still 2 pieces. It's just screwed together already for us. But the front is definitely quite a bit different, as you can see here. Yeah, you do have an extra bit of metal on the old one that is no longer here. So that's interesting. Other than that, they both look very similar. I do like the black, and I do like how the white writing looks on the black. If you compare that to this, obviously, it's just so much more readable. So yeah, very impressed with this so far. All right, next step, I'm going to try and disassemble this and get the old Pi out of it. Okay, so we got the Pi finally out. That was a little bit more hard work than I was expecting, but in my defense, I had thrown away the instructions for the old ones. I was just unscrewing things, and it is very much now in pieces. But that's fine. We'll compare those pieces as we go along with the new one. And starting with the heatsink. Now, at first glance, I really did think these were the same, but looking closer and closer, there are definitely differences. I don't know if those are differences that are going to make a difference, but the fans are different. The fins on this one are definitely bigger. It looks like, the copper is a bit different. I will also say that mine came a little bit beaten up in the packaging. So originally I wasn't going to replace it, but I'm going to replace it because this does look like it might be a marginal improvement, and it isn't damaged. So that's going to be an improvement anyway. So we will take this off, and then we'll start work on putting together the new one. So that's the Pi now completely freed from its casings. Yeah, we are just going to follow these instructions and just go all the way through. I will compare each component as we go to see if there are any other differences. And yeah, let's get to it. So the first piece we're adding in is the micro SD card extender, and these are identical. They have the same, is it going to focus? They have the same model numbers on them. I'm not sure you can see that, but they are identical. Next up, we have the USB and HDMI adapter. Now these do have different model numbers. This is V10 and this is, not going to focus, V11. So they have changed. On the face of it, looking at them, I can't see any difference. So if it is different, it's minutely different. There's definitely no new features here or anything like that. Next up, obviously the biggest difference here is the fact that we have the dual NVMe opposed to just the single. So this is of course a completely different board supporting those dual NVMe's. There isn't a huge amount different. They've got some extra chips on here, which I'm assuming is what's handling the logic of splitting that PCI lane. This is literally just a pass-through from the M.2 port on here to the PCI lane. This obviously has some more logic on it and is actually doing something with those connections. We do also have some LEDs on here. We have 3 now, so we have the two different drives and then power, whereas on here we had just the one, obviously. So yeah, big upgrade there. With all the hardware put together, it was time to do the software side. I flashed Ubuntu 25.04 onto our SSD and had no issues there at all. We got booted up and installed nice and quick. Then I made some changes to the boot config just to re-overclock again as we had a fresh OS, and also to enable PCI Gen 3. It's a bit of an oddity with our PCI lane on the Pi. It's actually only certified for PCI Gen 2, but it can do Gen 3 speeds. So for this purposes, we're enabling that and just going to see how it goes. If there's any stability issues, we may have to drop down to Gen 2. Then I got the Pironman software installed, which is available on their GitHub, and this controls all the extra things like that OLED screen and the extra fans. I did have an issue with this. When I installed it first time round, the OLED screen just kind of showed static and the fans wouldn't turn on. I have a feeling that the GPIO header that goes on that controls all this stuff wasn't actually seated quite right on the Pi, so maybe a couple of the pins weren't really making a good connection. Because once I took it apart, made sure that that was seated properly, put it all back together and reinstalled the software, it's all working now as expected. So the fans spin up when it gets too hot. You have full control over the LEDs, and also you have that little screen as well, which by default just shows you some system information. And I will say, I really like the new look of this. It's much more sleek. Of course, these acrylic sides are an absolute fingerprint magnet, which is a bit of a problem. But other than that, I think it's a big improvement over the original case. It's about just as easy to put together. Yeah, it took a little while, about half an hour, but no problem at all. Instructions very clear. Now, we could end the video here and I'd be very happy with this, but that's not really what we're about. We're going to take this a step further and we're going to utilize that extra M.2 slot to see if we can do something a little bit crazy and get a full-size GPU running on this Pi. And maybe do some gaming, maybe run some LLMs, I don't know, let's find out. Alright, so here is my incredibly janky setup. At the moment, we have our M.2 SSD, and then we have an M.2 to Octalink adapter, and all Octalink is PCI over a cable. So you've got PCI coming in, M.2 is just PCI as well, so M.2 to Octalink, which is just PCI, it's all PCI all the way down. And then over here we have a riser which converts Octalink into full-size PCI X/16. Now an M.2 slot by default has X/4, so we're already not going to have full, but this is also, I'm pretty sure, just one lane, so I think we're going to have even less lane space available, but it's fine. So they've got this overkill RTX 4060, and then over here we have this cute little SFX power supply as well. And yeah, that's the configuration. We've got my HDMI plugged into my computer over here with OBS record, so we should be able to see if we get video out from this. Essentially, I'm going to need to power on the GPU, then power on the machine, and see what happens. Let's go for it. Okay, so that's the power supply now plugged in. So there's a little switch on here that we should be able to switch on, and the fans spin up on the GPU. So the GPU is now getting power. We can now plug in our Pi, like so. Pi now has power as well. Let's see if we get video out. So as you might be able to tell, it's the next day. It's much brighter today. And yeah, I've been banging my head against the wall with this for a little while now. So story time so far as to where we got to. Well, started off by installing the eGPU switcher tool, which is available on GitHub. This seemed like a very useful tool, and all the guides that I'd seen suggested it was a good way to kind of be able to force the use of an external graphics card. And then I went about installing the Nvidia drivers that we were going to need. I did start by having a look and downloading them directly from the Nvidia website, because I kind of just assumed that they weren't going to be available for ARM in the Ubuntu repos. Now, the install process for the official download didn't work. It was complaining about the open source drivers and clashing and everything else. Kind of a known thing, you should never really install the Nvidia drivers directly from the Nvidia website on Linux. You should really try and use the packaged versions for whatever distribution you're using. So I did actually then check, and actually, lo and behold, there were ARM compiled Nvidia drivers in the Ubuntu repository. So we installed those with no problem at all. Using list PCI, I could see as well that the graphics card was showing up correctly. You could see it, it was there, it was recognized by the system, which is brilliant. After I got all the drivers installed and tried to use the eGPU switcher tool, it wouldn't actually recognize the GPU, it just had it as like a, it's an unknown GPU. I assume this might be because the tool doesn't seem to have been updated recently. And the 4060 is quite a new card, so maybe that was the issue there. I attempted to kind of force it to use the correct drivers and all those sorts of things, but no matter what I did, I couldn't get the system to actually load the drivers and load the card. Nvidia SMI just continued to complain that it couldn't connect to Nvidia drivers, and I couldn't really get anywhere with it. So that's kind of where we are up to today. I kind of knew this was going to be a bit of a challenge. Under Linux, AMD graphics cards definitely just work better, and I don't actually currently have an AMD graphics card to try. So I definitely kind of want the hive mind's help here. If you have any ideas of what I could do to try to get this to work specifically with my 4060, that would be very cool, and we can definitely do a second part if we can get this to work and explore how well it works. If we can't, then I'm probably gonna have to go about sourcing a AMD graphics card and giving that a shot. But unfortunately, that does mean for this video, we have not succeeded in building the ultimate Raspberry Pi. However, in terms of this new Pironman5 Max Case, and in terms of kind of that side of things, this is a really great upgrade. If you've got the original, I would actually say that this is still worth the upgrade. The dual M.2 slots is obviously great, not just for doing stupid stuff like this, but also you then can have two M.2 storage drives, or you could break out some other PCI device if you needed to be able to connect that to this. I know, for example, they offer like AI accelerator chips and that sort of thing. So there's loads of things that you can get for either the M.2 form factor or breaking it out to a PCI slot. So from that point of view, it's definitely worth the upgrade. A few of the other things is really nice as well. The fact that the rear fans are now kind of addressable and you have more control there. That's really nice. And just overall, I really like this black finish. Yes, okay, the plastic, absolute fingerprint magnet. Every single time I pick this thing up, I've then got to wipe it clean. So not ideal there, but otherwise, this is a really brilliant case that I'm very happy with. So I'll definitely be continuing this, and I kind of want to get a second Pi just to put in the old one, because the old one is still great. It's still a great case. This is just a good upgrade. Yeah, so comment down below if you have any ideas on how we can get the Nvidia graphics card working. Otherwise, we'll have a look at getting something from AMD. And yeah, we're going to wrap it up there for today. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, even if it has been a little bit of a fail. Yeah, I'll see you again in another one. Bye for now.